there was a lot of time put into designing that particular creature and the importance of that creature. I'm just wondering if they ended up downplaying his role later on, and so it just felt a little bit out of place. Again, the middle pacing, I've already talked about that. It just slowed down a bit, but I think it's going to get better on repeat viewings. The other thing I didn't care for, and I wish that they did such a great job of making sure that everything lined up. I mean, when you go watch A New Hope now and you listen to the dialogue as it relates to the Death Star plans, it takes on a different connotation. I mean, there is very much this, you watch Vader and Princess Leia talking to each other about the plans, and there's a lot of lying going on, right? You know, she's saying, I don't know what you're talking about, dude. Just a total denial to Darth. You know, I'm a member of the Imperial Senate on a diplomatic mission to Alderaan. He's like, no, you're not. You're part of the Rebel Alliance and a traitor. I was just there. And it raises the question of whether or not she knows. Has anybody had a chance to talk to her yet about what just went down? Does she know that Vader just showed up and wiped out a bunch of rebels? I mean, this is supposed to take place some 10 minutes before. I got to imagine that, you know, the guy that handed off the plans may be somewhat removed from what just took place, and so she may not know the events of what had happened on the Mon Calamari ship that she was attached to. But the part where they screwed up to me was they didn't add enough to the R2-D2 C-3PO cameo. I know C-3PO says, hey, we're heading to Scarif. You know, nobody ever tells me anything. But you have to sort of extrapolate that, okay, the Alliance is taking off to go help the Rogue Oneers on Scarif. Here's R2-D2 and C-3PO saying they're going to Scarif, so you assume they're going to be placed on the Tantive 4, and that's how they ended up on the ship, because when you watch A New Hope, they're instantly right there. So, again, minor thing, but that's what we do as Star Wars fans. You kind of have to extrapolate that okay, they left, went with Leia on the Tantive 4, and that's why they're there right at the beginning of A New Hope. All right, so the stuff that I love about the film, as we wrap up this half of the podcast before I talk to Drew, the Death Star arriving on Scarif. Something huge has just come out of hyperspace, and then the Death Star rising up. Just absolutely fantastic. I mean, what Gareth Edwards is able to do in terms of scale in so many shots is amazing. The way he makes these ships look massive, the way he made the Death Star just look absolutely massive was great. The space battle was fantastic, but also still not as good, in my opinion, as the battle over the Death Star in A New Hope, and that's a good thing. I love the Death Star battle in A New Hope because it's the only thing going on at the end of that movie, so there's no other cuts, and Lucas really gave us tiny little, I don't want to say vignettes, but if you had a TIE fighter engage an X-Wing or an X-Wing engage a TIE fighter, you saw that moment to its conclusion over in that battle. So you got a lot of long shots of TIE fighters and X-Wing fighters, you know, and Y-Wings battling, going down the trench. I mean, they were really good long shots where you could really take it all in and enjoy it. And I liked it better than the return of the Jedi battle because that's a great space battle, but there's a lot of quick cuts. The battle at the beginning of Revenge of the Sith is good, but what I loved about the Death Star one was that you really had time to absorb it, and there weren't so many quick cuts. This battle is fantastic in Rogue One, but again, it employs a lot of quick cuts. You get some great moments, and it is amazing, and I think upon multiple viewings, I'll probably appreciate it more. I certainly, again, did the second time around, but it still didn't do what they did with the Death Star battle in A New Hope, which to me keeps that unique and special. So I like the fact that they did that. I like the fact that, and maybe I'll talk about this with Drew, but I like the fact that when it comes to the walkers, you're not going to go, at least in my opinion, you're not going to go watch The Empire Strikes Back and then think, oh, that's not as good as the walkers happened in Rogue One. No, they did a really, really good job with that. In terms of giving you something that we've seen before, giving you something fresh and new, but not so great and grand that it diminishes the quality of viewing for the other films. And the last thing I want to mention, and probably is one of the most important things, is the use of the Force in this movie. Very subtle, but very, very effective. For one, adding to the saga with the Darth Vader Mustafar scene. To me, that's very important connective tissue because it provides you in a very short scene more Vader that you can add to your knowledge bank of Darth Vader when you watch the other films, whether it's Anakin growing up and knowing what's going to happen or whether it's Darth Vader in the original trilogy. But I also like the fact of what Chirrut Imwe gave in terms of the Force, the mention of the Journal of the Wills that's going to become a bigger part of this of this universe that they're building right now, obviously. And again, another opportunity to sort of break away from the idea of straight up Sith and Jedi, knowing that the Force expands beyond that to people who tap into it. And obviously Chirrut did, I am one with the Force and the Force is with me. And the fact that I'm convinced that Jyn was Force sensitive. You saw in the beginning, and certainly you get that idea if you read the prequel book Catalyst, but her mom handing her the necklace and her, mentioning the Force to Jyn. You have the moment after Edu and the death of her father where she walks over to Chirrut Imwe and she grabs his hand and they kind of bond for a second. Then she turns around and starts getting in Cassian's face for lying to him. I was convinced that they were sort of Force communicating. And then the moment right as they arrive to the shield gate where they're giving the command to open the shield gate, the codes, which is very reminiscent of Star Wars, right? And she pulls out the necklace and sort of closes her eyes. In that moment, to me, she was using the Force to try to influence the situation. I thought that was really, really cool. Because this movie's... What's going to be interesting for Disney is whether or not... Because they said that this was an experiment and the future of the Star Wars films is going to rest somewhat on, as they greenlight more movies next year, on the success of Rogue One. Well, they've proven now that they can tell they can tell a Star Wars story that's not directly connected to the sagas, doesn't have Skywalkers with brand new characters, and it can be successful. The question that I have is, can it be long-term successful? Can it be something that continues to expand the mythology? Because to me, that's a big part of why Star Wars is so successful is we want to see where the mythology is going. Where are these characters going? They killed everybody off here. So standalone, it is great. However, you're not going to be asking the questions that you ask whenever you watch a Star Wars movie. We are not going to be pontificating about these characters in Rogue One the way that, and questioning and wondering and speculating is probably the best word, speculating. We are not going to be speculating on the characters in Rogue One the way that we speculate the characters in The Force Awakens or the saga films. And therein lies the question of which route does Disney go. If they look, they'll be able to make Star Wars movies, are going to be fantastic and successful, but when you get way down the line, 10 years, is it going to maintain this level that it's at right now of fandom if you don't continue with that connective tissue? If they go sort of the Marvel Cinematic Universe route. And maybe that's the best route, where we pull back from doing trilogies. We do spin-off films that tie together, fill in gaps in the original trilogy, but then every handful of years we get a movie like an Avengers and Avengers Age of Ultron and Infinity War that brings in the grander scale. That, to me, is where the real question lies in the success of Rogue One, is what does it mean for the future of Star Wars films? Man, now I want to go out and watch it again. All right, so this wraps up my solo portion of the podcast. Let's go and bring somebody else into the mix and continue the conversation about Rogue One.
There has been an awakening. Have you felt it?
And holding the dubious honor of being one of two people who have been on this podcast with me, episode number 70 that we're on right now. My fellow cohort in regular job crime, Drew. Hello, Drew. How are you? Welcome to my nerd world.
So happy to be here, John. Thank you. It's an honor to only be, what'd you say, the second person that's been on this show with you?
Yeah, I haven't had anybody on this podcast other than you and Andrew Langer. So I
was going to say Langer must be the other one. Okay.
I'm pretty sure that's the case. Well, I've taken audio from our show and put it on the podcast before, but and
that's not the same.
Here's an interesting side note: is that this whole beginning part of your joining the Star Wars podcast this week is very indicative of our telephone calls, which means very rambling at the start with really no point whatsoever.
Why am I here?
Because we're gonna talk about Rogue One. That's why you're here. So
I haven't seen it yet.
Shut up. Yes, you have. Knock it off. So you've only seen it the one time.
Thursday night, yeah.
Thursday. So that's you're gonna wait until. Are you gonna go again before we all see it together coming up on Thursday, or are you gonna wait till that screening?
I have no plans at the moment to go see it again between now and Thursday, but it very well could happen. But nothing's set in stone. Like, we haven't bought tickets or anything or made any definitive plans. But I would like to see it again as soon as possible.
We ended up going. We did pretty much the same thing that we did when The Force Awakens came out. I went to the Thursday screening like you did on opening night, and took Logan, the 14-year-old, and then took the four of us, Kyle, my wife, and now 10-year-old, to the Friday one. And so we went and saw it yesterday when the boys got out of school. And this is going to end up being, and I don't know if it's just me, so I'm going to assume it is, unless you've experienced the same thing. But
okay,
it was way better for me, and I loved it the first time around. It was way better for me the second time around, but I think it's because of the nature of my fandom, and I get so excited for these movies because I had exactly the same thing happen to Force Awakens. I get so excited for these movies, and when they start, it's like the moment has arrived, and I'm almost like I'm watching too hard.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
I'm watching way too hard trying to consume everything. Yeah.
Yeah, you're looking for every detail. You're looking for, things that you might miss if you aren't paying super close attention.
Right.
And those things aren't always there.
Right. Right.
Sometimes the movie is just what's on the surface is what's happening. Those things that you're looking for in that first viewing are better consumed or better enjoyed, upon multiple viewings. That they're there to benefit the people who view it multiple times.
Right.
But I understand what you mean. It's like it's nearly impossible not to do that when you've been looking so forward to something.
Well, I realized on a couple of scenes on the first time around, I missed huge portions of dialogue because I was so taken in by all of it, and again, I just not to belabor the point, but I wasn't watching it like a normal movie, man. And I wasn't bummed out. I wasn't bummed out because I knew I was going to see it again. But watching it yesterday and just sitting back and then letting it unfold and not looking for all the little things the second time around,
right,
was even more enjoyable. I really do love this movie. We're going to be talking spoilers as we have been the entire podcast. So just so you're aware. But,
yeah.
In terms of ranking really quick, and then we can get a little bit about the film itself. Most of the fans that I've been listening to, and I've been listening to a ton of spoiler reviews since we saw it on Thursday night, and even today I've listened to a few while I've been playing Star Wars Battlefront, but the Scarif DFL on there. So, but many people are saying they like it better. I don't.
I can see that.
I can see it. But I actually still do like The Force. I adore The Force Awakens, and at this point, on two viewings, I still like The Force Awakens better. But it really is a spectacular film. And for those that haven't heard,
it's a great standalone movie. I mean, granted, I know this is supposed to be an anthology, but the way it's written and the way it plays out, I mean, it slides right into, in between episodes 3 and 4 perfectly, even though not technically part of the, it's not even a trilogy at this point, but whatever it is, it's not technically a part of the series, it's a saga. There you go. Yeah, it fits right in there perfectly. So, I lost my point while I was trying to think of the word saga.
Well, let me add this to it. I'll bring you back around. So I wanted to bring Drew on because you've been on the podcast before, and you're more of a casual fan to my being a hardcore fan. You're also not a fan of the prequels, and so I like having you on the podcast and talking Star Wars because you're able to provide more of the general audience, even though you're a little bit bigger of a fan than the general audience, but you're able to provide more of a general audience perspective on the on these films, and so. It was funny because we had some people in studio this week and who hadn't seen the movie yet. And I said, well, don't ask me if I like it. Ask him because Drew's a much better